Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, episode 33, also known as Halfway to 66, a nice auspicious number. So it's a big event for us today because we are now 6 months into doing this podcast, and wanted to read you some interesting stats. We started on January the 15th. I guess that would make us 7 months in.
Although I will say, little historical footnote, I think we began the dialogue about what would a podcast look like,
Right.
like last September.
Yeah.
So almost a year ago.
Yeah, Mike and I were talking about this, but this is...
We perseverated for
Right.
months and months and months trying to figure out what this thing should look like.
Right. And when we finally got ourselves around to doing it, we opened up with a mighty bang of 9 visitors and 16 views on our website.
And I think we had 42 people listen to the original podcast over on YouTube, which was where we were first posting it.
Right. And I think
now it's posted everywhere
Right.
and hell and gone.
So that there was probably Mike's mom, 3 of our best friends, and somebody who stumbled into the podcast by accident. And that's probably what we had listening. But now we're mega stars.
Mega-ish stars. Mega-ish stars.
We just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody out there because we passed 55,000 views on our WordPress site.
Yep.
Scariestthings.com, 1T.
1T.
And we have over 1,000 subscribers on Facebook with over 82,000 clicks on our Facebook site.
Indeed. And there's 1,100 of you over on
Instagram.
The Gram.
Thanks to Mr. Campbell's.
Yeah, well, thanks to you.
So
thanks to your hard efforts.
And again, we stopped. I forgot even to lead in with our intro. We are your gateway to the trends and tropes of the horror genre.
And that's the whole point of this.
That's right.
So we can tell the people of Yemen and Kazakhstan and Wales and Cork, Ireland, all about everything they need to know about horror.
Yes, and Mike's not joking when he says that because by some funny quirk of the way that Facebook does its advertising, we now have a lot of fans and viewers from the subcontinent.
From Indonesia.
Well, that's not being part of the subcontinent, but India is part of the subcontinent.
The subcontinent.
Yeah, but we do have Indonesia, Pakistan, Myanmar. I don't know how you're getting us in Myanmar, but thank you. Getting past your fabulous government and your
they loosened up
laws.
the screws ever so much to let scariestthings.com slide on in.
That's right. We're small enough to get under the radar. So, anyways, it's a huge thank you to everybody out there.
Big thanks.
And we realized that as trying to be your gateway, what does this mean? I think we're trying to expand the horror audience. That this is we're not the sickest and nastiest horror movie podcast.
This is not the deep dive. If you want to deep dive into giallo, if you want to deep dive into gore, if you want to deep dive into trauma and garbage and crap, there are podcasts for that.
And we can make
touch
references
on it.
for you.
We touch.
Yeah. No,
we touch on those things. We wade, but we don't dive.
Right.
Just wade.
So
small wade.
We're trying. What we're trying to do is review as many movies as we can, and to give you, our listening audience, a nice survey of great places to start in the horror genre, or things that you might have missed. And
like if you go back and listen to the first 32 episodes, you'll hear things like, where should I start if I want to listen to a horror soundtrack? Where should I start if I want to watch a film about crazy kids? Where should I start if I want to watch a film about maybe animals that go bad?
Yeah.
We've got it all. And
really?
this is like we we slowly introduce you into those subgenres of the larger horror genre, so you don't have to do the work. We help you get to the place where you ultimately want to go, which is a fun scare.
Right. But you know what we've been missing?
What is that?
We've
been missing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. but what you come to a horror movie podcast or a horror movie website is you want the big list.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, that is.
So,
and this is the ultimate thank you, really.
Yeah. So this is
the ultimate thank you.
So we are coming to you now with the release of our top 100 favorite horror movies of all time.
Favorite horror movies of all time, and this is the ultimate egalitarian reflection of democracy.
Democratic to a fault.
De Tocqueville would be so proud of this. James Madison might be rolling over in his grave. He might have a smile on his dark and deadened corpse.
There you go.
Because this is the ultimate reflection of democracy. I mean, we really came up with the most democratic way of. Well, I didn't do it. The way I characterized it is I went out for a nice jog, and Eric did a 26.2 marathon at a sub 4 minute pace.
I'm a little wiped out. I'll be honest. The categorizing of everything that came in, just to give you guys a notion of what we have done. What did you do? We reached out to our friends,
a number of different people,
and
friends and professionals,
experts.
Experts, yes, these are subject matter experts. These are real, legitimate, honest to God horror writers, horror filmmakers, horror aficionados.
Yeah, and
for really real.
And
we don't even have to name drop them, but we'll name drop them. You can see them on the website. You can get the name dropping there.
If you go to the top 100 section of our website, you will see all of our jury, and it's an impressive jury. I think. But we also mixed in some super fans and some very close friends to me and Mike and Robert. And Amy, who the four of us who make up the authoring portion of the Scariest Things, and we organized this by saying everybody voted for 25 films.
Yep.
And it was a weighted aggregate.
Right.
So what we would have is your top film is worth 25 points, and then you would name off all the way down to your 25th film, which was worth 1 point. And when you told
how did you do in statistics in college?
I never took stats.
I took the methodology of political analysis, which was a graduate level course, and I got a C. Because we got into weighted aggregates, and I was like, I'm not sure what's going on here.
One of the best things about being in architecture is there's not much math. Everybody thinks there's math in architecture, but if you can measure a wide flange beam, you pretty much got it. If you can add fractions, that's the amount of math you need for architecture.
There was a little bit of math,
but I admit that
lowercase m math.
As a sports fan, also I was a huge fan of statistics.
This is rotisserie league stuff going on right here.
I think we can say that after reviewing everybody's lists, they're all different.
Oh yeah, very different.
And
there's a ton of overlap. But there's a lot of differences because and what we're going to get to is because there was 326 films in total.
Yes.
That people voted for. We're only going to be covering the top 100. I mean, we might go and hip you to the remaining 226 at some point, but we're only going to hip you to the top 100, which is really the aggregate of the jury.
Right. And if you go, that's not a horror movie, well, Somebody thought so.
Somebody thought, or no, multiple people thought it was.
Because in truth, actually, what you will run into is once we get past number 90, every single movie that gets listed after 90 received multiple votes.
Right.
And by the time you get into the number 60 films,
40s, 50s,
you're
60s,
getting several votes for these movies. And
again, as a reminder, these are subject matter experts.
Right.
Multiple subject matter experts who thought this was a horror film and this was one of their favorite horror films.
Yeah. So, I think some of the things that I noticed, the trends in this list.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the movies are from the 1970s and onward.
Yep, I think that's true.
There are a few outliers. We'll get to those.
There's a handful, yeah.
But by and large, our experts figured that the best horror movies were of a more recent vintage.
Right.
And
we didn't get into, even though Eric and I just covered it with the 30s, well, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. We didn't get into Haxon. They didn't get into
Freaks didn't show up.
We didn't get into Phantom of the Opera. There was no Der Golem. There was no Wolfman. There was a lot of stuff that I was actually kind of surprised by.
We do have a 1920s movie show up in here.
Yes, there is. There is one. There is one.
And we have a couple of 30s movies. But really, I think, and no real big spoiler here, but Psycho's on the list. And that's the starting gun where you start seeing, I think you get Psycho and you got Rosemary's Baby from the 60s, and they're the two big sort of benchmarks, Night of the Living Dead also, where you start mapping forward. And I think this is something that we've been talking about, the beginning and the starts of the eras.
Right.
And I think really modern horror starts in 1960.
I think
based on this list, I think we can say that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, and based on all the research we've been doing, going all the way back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, I think it's fair to say that modern horror, when things really go off the rails, 1960.
Yeah. And just to let you
Although
guys
maybe 1956 with the bad seed.
And
although the bad seed didn't make the list.
You didn't put the bad seed on the list.
I should have put the bad seed.
If you put the bad seed on the list, it would have been a
solo there.
Yeah. So unless you put it as your number one and it would have made it in, and I would have been very disappointed if you would have done Your Man Romero.
Come on, Rhoda deserves better.
Yeah.
Give Rhoda some credit.
So I think that we did do some things where we reached out to I think there was a matinee era guy Ingo who I reached out to get a perspective. I think there's a young actor Kian Dowdy who I reached out to get a young person's perspective.
Yep.
I think we're
Kian
close to
is
13.
13.
Wow. Young man's seen a lot of horror for a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
That was very interesting.
Some of the films he saw were shocking.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know that...
If Kian's parents are listening, you guys need to tighten up those screws a little.
Well, I've been conversing...
Or good for you.
Yeah, so I think supporting your son and watching horror movies, because 13 was when I started, I think it was about 13. It was about 13 when kind of things started. Like I started to go a little darker, deeper dive. That was for me my number one movie.
Yes,
saw when I was 13.
Yeah, and we'll get there. So in a couple weeks, couple months.
Some other things. Foreign films did very well.
Yeah, they did surprisingly.
I think that you sometimes wonder how well this stuff translates. It with our jury. I think across the world, some very good horror movies came out from the foreign section, and surprisingly, the Hammer and the AIP films from the '60s didn't really show up much.
They didn't show up. I think there's also a lot of films, a lot of classics like from the '80s that I think people typically, and we talked a little bit about this in the context of overrated films, but I think there's some big ticket films that I think people generally revere as the best horror film. They didn't make the list, and I'm thinking Child's Play. I mean, Child's Play is a film that I think is largely revered. People really like it. It definitely has a cult following.
Made a lot of money.
Made a lot of money. It continues to make a lot of money in many ways, shapes, and forms, but didn't make the list.
Yeah, and the experts not only did it not make the list, it didn't get any votes.
The experts said no
to
Chucky. No Chucky.
So
go home, Chucky.
I think with that, I'd say let's kick this thing loose and start. Let's announce our first.
Let's start talking
movie. All right,
let's start talking horror. And you're gonna hear a lot of shuffling paper because we have the mother of all spreadsheets. It's like the Rosetta Stone. It's like there's colors and numbers, and there's like 80 columns, and I already said there's 326 rows, and this is the kind of Excel spreadsheet that if you opened up, I would be afraid that I would break it.
I made this thing, and it still confuses me. It looks like you're looking at the Matrix, right? All that the rows of numbers cascading.
We have entered the Matrix. The horror matrix. So let's start.
Let's
start. Number 90. Well, so we had a four-way tie
for 98.
For 100. Well, 98, 100. Yeah.
So
four-way tie. But let's start with the bottom of the four-way tie. The very first film on the top 100 horror films of all time, The Exorcism of
Emily Rose.
Emily Rose from 2005.
I will admit I was not aware of this movie.
Yeah.
And this is a movie that I think borrows strongly. Well, obviously it's an exorcism.
Yep.
But it is a film by Scott Derrickson, who brought us Doctor Strange.
Yep.
And Sinister and Deliver Us from Evil. So he's a real stalwart of recent vintage horror movies.
Yep.
It's got a great cast: Laura Linney, Tom Wilkinson, and Sheree Agdajlu. And I'll tell you,
Laura Linney looks great in the film too.
She does.
Yeah.
The film is about a lawyer who takes on a negligent homicide case involving a priest who performed an exorcism on a young girl.
Right. You know what it reminded me a lot of was, which I just reviewed recently, The Last Exorcism. It had a lot of those same kinds of qualities where it's really like questioning the whole exorcism construct and like the idea that maybe exorcism isn't the best thing for you, and maybe some psychoactive drugs and a little bit of mental health might be the way to go.
Although if you watch the trailer...
So I didn't see, in the interest of full disclosure, I didn't see The Exorcism of Emily Rose either. I have not seen it.
Right. And this is one of our jurors, Rocky Gray's number 2 pick. Stood alone, Rocky.
So thanks, Rocky, for hipping us to a pretty cool film, because it's a recent film. I mean, it's 2005.
So it is certainly one that I am now intrigued to go see. I think
you know what this list is going to be? This is going to be the top 100 horror films, also known as 40 films we're ashamed we haven't seen.
You can go back to
this will be episode. This will be the next episode. 40 horror films we're ashamed we haven't seen. And we run a horror podcast.
Right. So
that's what this is going to be.
Take our jury's word for it. It's worth seeing.
So, based on your cursory look at The Exorcism of Emily Rose, without actually having seen it, do you think it belongs in the top 100 from what you can tell?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it looks legit. It plays it straight.
Yep.
It takes an interesting take on exorcism and as you were alluding to, maybe a little bit of psychoanalysis or something else might have been in store for it. It's a scary trailer.
Yep.
And as far as that's as far as I can go with it. I'm gonna
say looks like a good movie. Maybe not top 100.
Yeah, I think there are some.
I think it looks pretty solid. Sorry, Rocky.
Yeah.
I do need to see it because I probably shouldn't be pontificating about a film I haven't seen. But I don't know if it's top 100, but it definitely looks good.
Well, I'm going to have to get this off my chest because the films that were right at the cut line, I had 2 of my top films got nicked right at the finish line, and included
that was
Frankenstein and Cat People.
Yes.
And I love both of those movies.
1931, 1941.
Yeah, and so it's like, is The Exorcism of Emily Rose for me better than Frankenstein?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Who knows?
I'm saying Frankenstein is a pretty awesome movie, and I'm disappointed that it didn't get more love. I won't be belaboring that much longer.
You're going to be hearing about that every podcast for the next 8 podcasts.
God damn it! Why didn't you guys put Frankenstein on the list?
All right, number 97.
Well, no, this is
these are all tied.
These all tied, and so in truth, we actually have 102 films because the last 4 films sort of spilled over the 100 marker. So
98.2.
Yeah. So this one is
98.2.
Spooky Encounters.
No. The Changeling.
The Changeling. Well,
the Changeling.
Yeah,
that's
Changeling.
next.
Okay, The Changeling.
Right.
Well, they're both tied.
Yeah,
so spoiler alert: we've given you two movies that are tied here, but let's talk about The Changeling.
Yes.
I know The Changeling is near and dear to Mr. Campbell's heart.
I put it as my number 1 ghost movie. If you go back and listen to episode 5 or 6-ish, I put The Changeling as my number 1 ghost film because I think it's a very very terrifying, really well done film. wonderful soundtrack. I think I talked a little bit about it in the film. Like the soundtrack plays is almost a character in the film because it revolves around this sort of struggling composer whose wife and child have died, and then he inexplicably decides to move to Seattle to take on this gargantuan mansion that is haunted by ghosts, or maybe his dead wife and dead child. I don't know.
Yeah, and never has a bouncing ball been more terrifying.
It's super terrifying. This film, of course, is from 1980. Yeah, it's a great film. If I could have stretched out my list to like 30, 35, The Changeling might have made its way on that list.
Well, before we actually went on this enterprise of doing the top 100 and asking all of our jury to submit a top 25,
right?
Mike and I had done a top 30, and I think The Changeling was on your list. It was one. It got knocked off the bottom.
So I misspoke. So it's on my list.
It would have been on the list. I didn't count it because it fell after 25.
Would have been on my list. Yes, twice.
So,
yeah, Changeling's good.
And if we didn't, I don't know if you had mentioned it, but it's George C. Scott.
George C. Scott is the actor.
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. George C. Scott, of course. Dr. Strangelove. Hardcore, Patton, Exorcist Part 3. Yeah. Yes, one of the all-time greats.
Yes.
And he, surprisingly, I mean, George C. Scott can be a little bit like Robert De Niro, a little bit like Al Pacino, where they get just kind of like the acting is like kind of it can get a little crazy, and we're like really chew up the scenery. Mm-hmm. In this one, he's pretty subdued.
He restrains himself a good bit.
He keeps to the ghost. Keeps to the ghost story.
He does have a fantastic "What do you want from me?"
Which you got to have that in every single film. George C. Scott's in.
A little bit of shouting.
Yes,
George C. Scott.
Okay. All right, let's move on to. So we have both seen The Changeling, and we both concur. It's top 100.
So we kind of spoiled it a little bit, but the also tied for 98th place.
98.3.
Right. Spooky Encounters. And it's like, when I saw this show up, this is Dina Warner, who is a horror novel cover artist.
Beautiful work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can check out her work.
Yeah, beautiful work.
Worked with some of the best in the business.
Mm-hmm.
But her selection for her number 2 pick was Spooky Encounters, also known as Encounters of the Spooky Kind. And it gives me little heart palpitations here because this is directed by Sammo Hung. This is a kung fu horror comedy movie.
But Sammo Hung, man, he is legit. If you know anything about kung fu, Sammo Hung is like he's right up there with Lo Lee and all of them. I mean, he's for a long time Sammo Hung was he was a Shaw Brothers regular, and he did some great stuff. I haven't. Have you seen Spooky Encounters?
No, I haven't.
I haven't seen Spooky Encounters either.
I watched the trailer.
Looks very funny.
Really good. I think it's got hopping zombies with and this.
So here's the thing with the hopping zombies and vampires. I don't know why this is, because I have consumed maybe like second only to horror. Probably the next genre down for me would be Kung Fu. And for some reason, I have no idea why, culturally, the Chinese, and if we have any Chinese listeners, if we are breaking through into Beijing, and you
by way of Myanmar,
and you can explain this cultural phenomenon to us, for some reason, at least the way they presented zombies and vampires in Kung Fu films, they jumped. And for some reason, hopping vampires was way more scary than like shambling or floating vampires.
They had their arms straight out, rigid, chasing you, but they bounce, and it's kind of comical.
It's like they're doing the CrossFit burpees or something. It is the strangest thing. I don't get it. It's one of those cultural things. I'm sure there are cultural things aplenty about American filmmaking that people look at and they go, "That's not scary at all." And I look at jumping vampires and go, "That's not scary at all."
Right.
So with total deference to Dina, I'm sure she knows what she's talking about.
And we didn't. To be clear,
yes,
we didn't say the top 100 scariest horror movies. We said the top 100 favorite horror movies.
Favorite.
And by way of explanation,
the ones you like.
If the word horror shows up in either IMDb or Wiki, it's in.
Yes.
And there are going to be movies in here you're going to go, that's not a horror movie at all. It's like, yeah, sorry, it sort of shows up in there. And I'm not going to deny our jury a vote on this thing, but there are some questionable ones as to how scary they are. This one is
these people are pros. They're in the business, and if they say they're one of their scariest or they're one of their favorite horror films of all time, it's in the list.
So anyway,
and that's how democracy works. So stuff it.
Exactly. So we've got
all right. Anyways, spooky encounters.
Spooky encounters. So this is a ghost story involving a dare of Sammo Hung's character Bold Chung, who has to stay in an abandoned haunted house and peel an apple in front of a mirror and avoid breaking the skin of the apple, or something horrible will happen. He gets tricked by his buddies, and and he nicks the apple, and then
again makes no sense.
Craziness ensues. Hopping corpses, corpse foo, totally bonkers.
Vampire
action,
foo, zombie foo.
Doesn't make much sense, but man, it looks like it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to the question of does it belong in the top 100? Maybe.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no for now.
Yeah, I think based on my previous criteria and my qualms about what movies that I didn't have make it on the list.
Yeah,
but yeah, there we have it. It's tied for last.
Yes,
on the top 100.
All right, what do we got next?
And the last of our tied, and just so you guys know, these first 4 films that we're talking about all had one singleton second place vote.
Yep.
This is Sharon Yablon's number 2 pick. Now, Sharon is someone who I was told would really like our podcast very early on when we were doing this. An old friend of mine, Nancy, said, I don't like horror movies, but Sharon loves horror movies.
Well, I poured over everybody's lists, and I got to say, I've never met Sharon, but I've got to say, of all the lists...
You guys have very similar kinds of lists.
Right, yeah. Sharon's list was right in the pocket for me.
Yep.
For me, yeah. I thought her list was great.
A lot of kind of the 70s, 80s grindhousey kind of stuff.
Yeah, and including this one, which you're about to talk about.
Satan's Triangle.
Satan's Triangle from 1975, which is really a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, this is an ABC movie, and there's...
It was like ABC Movie of the Week that they would show at like 9 o'clock on Saturday night.
Mike likes to reference an old 70s TV show hosted by Leonard Nimoy called In Search Of.
Yes.
And one of the favorite things, apart from Sasquatch, we've talked a lot about Sasquatch.
Yep.
But another thing they like to
we've
talk
talked about Sasquatch, Rob Zombie, and dwarfs.
Oh, yeah, ad nauseum. But something else that was very popular in the 70s as far as phenomena was the Bermuda Triangle.
Yes. Bermuda Triangle was a very, very weird and mysterious thing that we still have not figured out.
I don't know if it's still a problem. I mean, it's like nobody seems to be disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle anymore. I just think
what it is? This is my theory. Global warming took care of the Bermuda Triangle because it's like the weather patterns have thrown everything totally off. Right. That whatever weird magnetism was happening in the Caribbean has just been blown totally off course.
Right.
And we're just not seeing it anymore.
Okay.
That's my theory.
Well, according to Satan's Triangle, the idea was they find Kim Novak on a ship that
Kim Novak and Doug McClure, also 70s great.
So they were Kim Novak's the sole survivor on a boat that she claimed that the devil took her comrades and everybody else in the boat got wiped out by some sort of mysterious force, which is kind of it was blending two extraordinarily popular things, because in 75 we're hot on the tails of The Exorcist.
Yep.
Right. The Omen's right around the corner.
Yep.
This
satanic panic is starting to grow.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's like, what would sell better than Satan. Bermuda Triangle plus Satan? And it's got this a fun twisty ending. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't know how to spoil the twisty ending because I haven't seen the movie.
I haven't seen. Well, I do remember Satan's Triangle. I do remember, I think, seeing it. I did watch a couple clips online. It's like I don't even know where you get a copy. There's got to be a gray market copy floating around, but it's like good luck finding a copy.
Yeah, I think, and for those of you who are younger than say 30, who don't remember that actually once upon a time,
or 40,
once upon a time, network television used to make movies for broadcast.
Yeah,
they don't do that anymore.
No, they don't.
And just think of it this way: say in 30 years, people will say, "Once upon a time, Netflix made movies
right.
for Netflix or Amazon." Kind of a thing. So it's the same. Yeah. I think it's there's a couple of television picks, and actually Sharon may be the one who's picked both of the TV ones that ended up on this list.
Yep. Sorry, Netflix, you're going down.
So
in 30 years, Eric just predicted it.
Yep.
Netflix will not exist in 30 years. Sorry.
Number 97.
Number 97.
A movie that Mike is familiar with.
Yes.
1975's Race with the Devil.
Race with the Devil, yes, featuring Peter Fonda.
And Warren Oates.
The incomparable Warren Oates.
Wasn't Warren Oates Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia?
Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, yeah. No, Warren Oates is the best.
Was he Sandinista?
And Loretta Swit.
Yeah.
Hot Lips Houlihan. Major Houlihan from MASH.
When did MASH start?
Was it 74? 75?
So this would have been right about the same time.
Yeah. This was probably
before she got locked into her contract of having to do a weekly series.
Yeah. So this was kind of like, this was, when this, also in the 70s when things were popular, things like, motorcycles and CB radios and Winnebagos, and you just load up your Winnebago with your best friends and you put some dirt bikes on that thing and you go out and you see the countryside.
And you know what else was popular in the 1970s?
Satan.
Satanic cult rings, baby.
Satanic cult rings. Yeah, that's basically the gist of this film. Is no more complicated than two couples. They go out, decide to go out, tour the country with their Winnebago, do a little dirt biking on the side, have a couple beers, couple laughs, and one night they hear some strange sounds out in the woods, and Peter Fonda and Warren Oates stumble into a satanic ritual.
And
the Satanists are not having any of it.
Right.
And so then it's essentially like it's about an hour and 15-minute long chase film.
And they kill a dog.
And they do kill a dog. It's a great film. The satanic cult scene is super scary and super legitimate, and you look at it from this kind of voyeuristic framework where they're quite a ways away, and so it's some of it's difficult to make out, which makes it even more creepy. And then you hear all the chanting, you see the flames, you see the nude women that they're going to be sacrificing, etc. And yeah, it's a great film. And then, lo and behold, of course, what you ultimately learn is that it's not just the people that were at the satanic cult. They're in on the Satanism. Oh no!
It's the whole community.
It extends far, far, far beyond the satanic cult.
So you can't even run for help.
Yes, I did not put this on my list. I think it deserves to be on the list. I know my pal Matt had this on his list. Matt Howell.
Hey, Matt.
I think it's a great film. It is a classic doom-filled grindhouse film with a classic doom-filled grindhouse movie ending.
Yes. And number 96 is one of my personal favorites, and that
is
Black Sunday.
Black Sunday is a great film.
1960, which was
Mario Bava.
Mario Bava, the first of the Giallo films.
Yeah, I don't know if you call it Giallo, but yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's Italian.
Mario Bava begets, Dario Argento.
Sure,
and
begets Lucio Fulci.
Yeah. So this is a monumental movie relative to modern horror cinema.
Oh,
because
going back to what you were saying earlier, it all began in 1960.
Yeah.
This is 1960.
This is the year that Psycho,
Yep,
Eyes Without a Face,
yep,
Peeping Tom,
yep,
and Black Sunday.
Day of the Triffids.
Day of the Triffids was 60.
I know.
Or, yeah, no, but this was. I think we talked about this. If you listen to our matinee era podcast, this was a tipping point. This was
when
Bava and Hitchcock and the name escapes me who the Peeping Tom director is. But they all decided that they were going to push the code.
Yep.
The movie rating system not yet established, but there had been this morality code in place.
The Hays Code.
For decades.
Yep.
And the scene, the very opening scene from Black Sunday, which you had the fabulous Barbara Steele playing the witch Katya Vajda, and she's tied to a post, and the witchfinder goes out there and tells her to repent her sins. And she sort of sever her allegiance to her assistant, who is also a known Satanist, who is by this point already pretty much been dealt with by the.
And she says, "Hell no!"
Literally, hell no.
Hell no.
Like, and so that they put this death mask on her, which is essentially
just an Iron Maiden for the face.
Yeah, and they take the mask and they hammer a mask full of spikes through her skull and hammer it straight to the stake. It is, for 1960, this is crazy gross.
And you see it, not only you see it actually being hammered on, you actually see it when she takes hers off, when her assistant takes his off 200 years later, when they get when they're resurrected.
Yeah. You also get the perspective of, you can see the mask coming to her face, and you can see the spikes coming at you. It's
horrific by 2018 standards. I can't even imagine what people were doing in 1960.
And I loved it also because it took a ton of cues from Golden Age horror.
Oh yeah.
This looked like it was the opening scenes from Dracula.
Yep.
With the going up into the moors and the castle.
It was
the crypts.
So there's a ton of sets that they shot it on, but it was actually shot at an Italian castle. The name, I think it's like St. Lucio Castle or something like that. Kind of just outside on the outskirts of Rome. Beautiful, beautiful castle. I mean, and the thing that's so amazing about the film, it is so not just stylistically dark, just dark.
Yeah.
It is like constantly like, creeping branches and dark clouds and lots of fog and dank dungeons.
It borrowed a lot of the noir 1940s look also.
Oh yeah. The shadows, the lighting, it's just it is a
gorgeous movie to watch. And
so amazing.
And I will say Barbara Steele is one of the loveliest creatures ever to
be
grace
a witch,
a horror
to be a
Satanist.
Satanist witch.
However, apparently she was very, very difficult to work with.
Oh really?
She was she was an 18-year-old British actress who didn't know any Italian. They selected her because of how beautiful she was.
Right.
She didn't like working with anybody on the set, and apparently she was miserable and got drunk a lot of the time. And she admitted to this later on.
Right.
And so Bava, I think, is reasonably generous when he talks about her because of how successful the movie was.
Yeah. No,
I think if the movie was a flop, I think there would have been issues.
Yeah.
But the movie did. I think there were some. I think that there was some major censorship issues coming over to the United States. With this film.
All right, so we've both seen it.
It's on my list.
Should it be on the top 100?
I'm saying it's in the top 25.
Oh, is it? Is it on your top 25?
Well, it was on my top 25 list.
Oh, is it? Oh, it was? Okay, yeah. No, it was not on my top 25. Definitely top 100.
Yeah, so I
definitely top 100. Solid film.
I had this as the number 21 film on my list.
I think that is totally fair. All right. Let's move on to the next one. This is, of course, now we're going to
we have a tie for 94.
Tie for 94.
And so what this means is these are we got two number one films selected, and they stood alone. They're singleton number ones.
Yep.
The first one is I'm going to bring out Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives.
Yes.
This is so the Tremble podcast.
And this is from 1986.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I get all these Friday the 13th movies mixed up. There's Jason Lives. There's Part 7, New Blood.
There's
Part
Jason,
5's A New Beginning. It always means like he's back from the dead.
there's Jason Goes to New York. Jason Goes to Outer Space. Jason Goes to Broadway.
Yeah, it's Jason. I think it's called Jason Takes Manhattan, which sounds like
Yes.
it's like he's going to do cats, right? It's going to do Jellicle cats on the stage. But I will admit, Friday the 13th has got a lot of same to me.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly, yeah.
But if anybody needs a recap about the Jason 6 movie, this is the one where he gets brought back to life by a lightning rod because there was one of the surviving character from Part 5, and these are all nameless guys at this point. I think his name is Tom. But I can't be 100% certain.
I think it was Don. No, I'm kidding.
could be Delron for all I know. But he's like, he thinks that Jason he's not truly dead, so he wants to put a spike through. He wants to put a spike through his brain,
Right.
And instead, in the process of exhuming Jason's body,
He sets up a lightning rod.
Jason gets struck with lightning, which brings him back to life.
And you can see basically the entire foundation or the entire plot in a minute-long trailer,
Right.
which is the most underwhelming trailer maybe in motion picture history. Sorry, Tremble Podcast.
Jason rips a guy's arm off. He kills 18 people total in this movie.
Good kill count.
If you want to actually, we do have, in tribute to Jason Voorhees, if you go to our website and you look up our infographics page, there's a fun graphic that shows an infographic of every single person that Jason kills and a little infographic of how he does it.
Right.
My favorite one is actually from episode 7, where he takes a girl in a sleeping bag and beats her against a tree inside the sleeping bag. Stupid stuff. This is a stupid movie. But it is, this is, spoiler alert, this is your Friday the 13th appearance.
Yeah.
Nobody else voted for it. I think, Friday the 13th, the first movie, got a few votes, but it didn't make enough to get into the top 100.
Yeah, I put Friday the 13th on my list for sure. The original, because I think that that to me is still the best, and it really broke the mold for so many different things. Yeah,
but I look back at it as I think Black Sunday.
Black Sun.
Black Christmas.
Well, yeah,
in
terms of a slasher film, sure.
But Camp Crystal Lake and the whole thing of the teenagers having sex in the woods and then getting someone just going out and punishing them by killing them.
Yeah,
there's a proud tradition of that still goes on today.
So I may or may not have seen this. You are saying you haven't seen it.
I have not. I saw 7, and I've seen 3, and I've seen.
Well, sure.
1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, you got to see
3. 1, 2, 3, and 7.
And you haven't seen Jason in Space.
I did not see Jason. I got tired. I'll admit, guilty as charged. Not a fan of.
Should it be on the top 100 list? You're leaning no.
I'm saying no. Of the Friday the 13th ones, I would have taken 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm leaning no as well. Just only because if I saw it, I don't remember it.
But again,
it was not memorable.
To insult our friends at Tremble Podcast. I think Tremble Podcast, by the way, folks, is if you want to listen to the deep dive that we were talking about, they specialize more in taking an individual film and breaking it down for an hour.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to
chances are they probably have broken down Friday the 13th Part 6.
Undoubtedly, they will have talked about this one.
All right. Let's go now to 94.2.
Okay, now here's an oddball one. This
is a curveball.
Yeah, this is a curveball. This is I was not aware of this movie. This is one of the there's a fellow who part of the most clever, wisest horror movie duo for trivia experts. These guys know everything. It made me feel like a chump. But the tag team,
they exposed us for the charlatans that we really are.
The tag team of Willie Greer and Jeff Dean. This is Willie Greer's #1 film, Santa Sangre.
Yeah.
A Mexican-Italian movie. Santa Sangre is Holy Blood.
Yes.
And is directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Yeah.
Notable surrealist director. His stuff is gonzo crazy. He has done very few movies, and every one of them is considered to be some sort of a weird artistic masterpiece of a sort. They're very strange, right? In a way that I think maybe Peter Greenaway does strange movies.
Yeah. I was thinking more like the Badlands director. His name totally escapes me now.
It's not Wim Wenders.
Yes, no, it's not Wim Wenders, but
he's
somebody who does very select few films, and then
he's an artiste.
Really puts his all into those few films that he does do.
And he might be actually best known for the movie that he didn't make, which is Dune. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to be doing Dune.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys who went on to do Alien, H.R. Giger was on that team.
Right.
I think Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, the guys, there were a lot of guys who were working with Jodorowsky on that Dune movie, went on to do Alien.
Right.
But Santa Sangre.
This is about 9 years after Dune.
This is 1989. So this is life in the Mexican circus isn't easy. This is a brutal movie. Rape, dismemberment, disfigurement, and the death of an elephant, all from the mad genius of Jodorowsky. Now, you don't have to take our word for it, but Roger Ebert, probably the greatest film critic of all time.
We have cited him a couple times. Not Pauline Kael.
No, and not who's the guy with the big mustache?
Yes, he used to be on the Today Show.
He's got the white dude with the afro and the big mustache.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
You out there, our listening audience knows it. It's not Gene Shalit.
It is Gene Shalit.
Yes,
it's Gene Shalit. Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyways, Roger Ebert. It's a horror film, one of the greatest. And after waiting patiently through countless dead teenager movies. AKA Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I am reminded by Alejandro Jodorowsky that true psychic horror is possible on the screen. Horror poetry, surrealism, psychological pain, and wicked humor all at once. So I think
it's a good film. It is a good film. I never really associated it with horror though. Mm-hmm. I definitely saw this in college. Saw it at an art house film. Art house theater, and I remember being struck by how gruesome it really was. But I never associated it with a horror film. I remember there was just like tons of dread and despair and like really nasty stuff. But I never thought like, oh, this is there was no, as we talked about horror, not horror. There was no like supernatural element that kind of crept in.
When I read about it, it sounded a bit like an updated version of Freaks to a certain degree.
Yeah, a little bit. It had some of those qualities, yeah.
And there's a lot of dismemberment from what it sounds like. Multiple people getting their arms chopped off. Mm-hmm. What sounds like, So, anyhow, so Santa Sangre, there you go, Willie. It made it. We were, it was sort of a running joke as we were tabulating this that Santa Sangre was at risk of actually falling off the list, but it made it into the top 100. Congratulations.
Yeah. So I hadn't seen it, or I did see it, but I saw it a long time ago. Mm-hmm. You haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Should it be in the top 100 list?
I'm loath to deny anything that Willie's expertise would say is a great horror movie, but it's not really on my radar.
The subject matter expert put it as number one, so that is a healthy endorsement.
Yes. So I think it where it's at right now, I think is probably a safe spot for it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Unlike the next one that we have on the list.
I would agree.
Here we go. A hot take on this one. Event Horizon, 1997 by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes.
This is a movie that I'm betting that most of you guys know about.
Not the now famed director, Paul Anderson.
There's
couple Paul Anderson.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Paul. So he has to be WS, who's gone on to do Resident Evil and other mediocre movies.
Right.
But it's got a great cast.
Awesome guy. You read my mind. Great cast.
Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, Kathleen Quinlan, Jolie Richardson, Richard T. Jones, Jack Noseworthy, and Jason Isaacs, all good actors. This is a studio production.
It was funny to look at Lawrence Fishburne because, like, I'll bet when he did, because this was 1987, I'll bet when they did it, I mean, he was probably like in his 30s, which is crazy to think about because, when he did Apocalypse Now in 79, he was like 14.
Yeah, he was skinny little kid.
Yeah, and so like when you look at him in this film, like you're like, wow, he looks really young in this film, and he was.
Yeah,
he was a very young guy in this film.
So I think this is the things that I can say on the positive side for Event Horizon. I think that the art direction was very interesting. I think it has a great cast. The
art direction was interesting, although
it's
insanely dated now.
Yeah, it's completely preposterous. Unlike, say, because I think what they were shooting for was something that looked like Alien. Yeah, that they were aping.
Well, not just the like the physical effects, but the computer generated effects are preposterous looking.
Yeah,
it looks really silly now. Right. Looking through it from a 2018 prism. Yeah. It looks really silly, and that's the risk and the reward. Because if you go back and look at 2001: A Space Odyssey, frankly, there's nothing in that film that looks preposterous.
No,
like it's all incredibly future thinking. Mm-hmm. But there's at one point in the film when they're on the deck and they have to radio over to the other ship, the Event Horizon that they've docked into, and she pulls literally like a CB radio off the control panel, and she's like trying to radio through with the CB radio, and I'm thinking, you know what? I just have this sinking feeling that in 2047 technology might have advanced beyond the CB radio.
So I think that we may be jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit here because we're running on the assumption that you know about Event Horizon. But for those of you who don't know about Event Horizon, this is a haunted house in space.
Basically, yes.
That the Event Horizon is a ship that went and made a wormhole jump where they folded space, went out there and came back and brought hell with it.
Yes, a little bit of hell.
This was, and you saw that the previous crew...
And the hell was in the space.
Yeah.
The hell came into the spaceship.
For some reason, the hyperdrive was evil.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't quite get it. I think for me, I would say it was a fair to middling horror movie. I don't think it wasn't... I didn't hate it, but it's not one that I wouldn't come close to getting a sniff from me on the top 100.
No, there's lots of jump scares. All the jump scares are not well deserved, not well earned. They're kind of silly. A, B, the plot is kind of preposterous.
Yeah,
it is kind of preposterous, and so I'm not sure who put Event Horizon on the list.
We had multiple people put it on
Event Horizon. Yeah, we would have had to have multiple people.
Yeah.
So in deference to them, there are a couple really great pieces and parts. I think the acting is very good. Mm-hmm. I think there are some interesting sort of visual and artistic pieces.
Conceptually, I think it's an interesting thing.
Right, but by today's standards, it just falls apart.
Something that will be very interesting of similar vein that's going to come out on television is Night Flyers.
Yeah,
which is the Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin wrote the Night Flyers back in the 80s, and it was a horrible movie because its production values were crap.
Yep.
And it came out and it didn't make any money. But now that Martin is famous, he's rebooting it as a television series, I think, on Sci-Fi Channel.
Yep.
But that's another one where it's it's a haunted spaceship.
Yep.
So interesting to watch. So we got two more.
So, but we're both agreed here.
Not on my list. It's on the top 100.
It is on the top 100 list.
Congratulations. It is Event Horizon, you made it.
Yes, for the podcasting crew at the Scariest Things podcast, It does not belong on the top 100 list.
And we get to number 90.
It does belong on this list.
Yes, it belongs on this list. Mike and I are not on
our list. All right. So next we have number 92,
which is a hot take again.
We just put this on our most overrated films of all time. This is 2000's Final Destination.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I understand and I get it. I have gotten a lot of grief for me bad-mouthing this movie on the...
And we've already bad-mouthed it.
Yeah, again.
So we don't need to bad-mouth it anymore.
I went back to it. I can say this much. I'll repeat what I said in the Overrated podcast.
Mm-hmm.
This movie has a lot of fans.
Yep. Which is why there are we are now in the 17th installment of Final Destination.
It's got the roller coaster one. You got the log truck. You got the bridge.
That's how many fans there are.
At some point, there's going to be the escalator version, right? So killer escalator.
Segway.
Yeah,
the Segway. It's going to be a very slow moving death,
right? But I think that what I think appeals to a lot of the fans of this series is that they take these fanciful and clever, made you look, second guess, sleight of hand, make you think it's going one way, and then they go another way with how they kill the characters off. But it is a killing by numbers movie. The first one tends to be of consequence. There's usually a big funeral. A lot of people are sad, and then they get panicky, and then they realize that they're up against something otherworldly. But it's fate, and you can't cheat fate. That's the idea.
Yes.
I don't like it.
Yes.
Let me straight up. And people are going, "You're crazy. That's a great movie." It's like it's on the top 100 list. So there you go. You can be.
Congratulations. This is the ultimate in democracy.
Right.
Hillary Clinton had 3.2 million more votes than Donald Trump. Somehow she's not in the White House. Final Destination is on our top 100 list. This is our Donald Trump of the top 100 list. It's right here.
Right.
So, this is democracy in action.
I think. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to. I'm looking at who had Final Destination. I think this might be. I think our authoring colleague, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is one of Amy's on her list. I can't see the top of my spreadsheet is so cockamamie right now that I can't see the top of the list to figure out who voted for it. That said, we'll move on.
Yes. To number 91.
91, closing out the top the bottom the top of the bottom 10 of our list is one of my favorite movies, and I think the reason why it's on here is I think I put it up high. This is King Kong.
Yep, number 9 you put it.
Yeah. No, not number 9. That's got 9 votes. So
sorry.
It would have been number
something.
Number 16, I think.
There you go.
On my list. I love King Kong.
King Kong is a great film.
It's a beautiful movie. It's fun. It was way ahead of its time. Nobody even attempted anything that looked like it until the 50s, and they did it with Godzilla, right? And then we got a whole bunch of giant
Godzilla, and them, and Black Scorpion, and we talked about these. And go back and listen to the last couple episodes where we covered the matinee era.
So it would have been episodes 30 and 32.
Yep,
we talked about that. King Kong ahead of its time. The iconic moments in film history that people will always remember. It's like it wasn't the airplanes that got him; it was beauty that killed the beast. I mean, the lines are memorable. Fay Wray screaming was the original scream queen. She was the damsel in distress, and the fact that the stop motion animation that Willis O'Brien begat Ray Harryhausen begat George Lucas. There's some things that are just so important about King Kong, and I'm disappointed that it didn't finish higher.
Yeah. I am too. So, I mean, it was not on my not on my top 25 list, but King Kong, I could easily see it going a heck of a lot higher because this really is the progenitor of all of the monster movies. The big monster. This is where it started.
And
I mean, arguably, I think it became hyper famous from 1954 and beyond with Godzilla. I mean, I think Godzilla is when it really the monster craze really kind of took off in a very different light because as we talked about extensively in the Matinee Era podcast, you got into the Red Scare and the Atomic Age and everything, and this was a wholly other sort of separate.
Yeah, this was Age of Exploration.
Yeah,
this was and Kong battling a T-Rex, Kong battling a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Kong taking a log and dumping a bunch of guys into a canyon. It was like I remember that as a kid, and that scared the crap out of me.
How would you rank Kong 1, 2, and 3? How would you rank the 3?
4. There's 4 of them now. 4 big ones.
That's right. Well,
Kong Skull Island.
Well, that doesn't count.
Yeah, no, I'm going.
Kong Skull Island doesn't count, and neither does Mighty Joe Young, and neither does Queen Kong.
I'm one of those few people. I'm a big defender of the Peter Jackson King Kong.
Yeah. So you go that one first?
No.
Oh, no. This one first.
No. This is Marion Cooper's first.
33 first.
33 first, then 2005, then
And 1976. 76.
76,
Yeah,
and then after that,
Queen Kong.
Yeah.
Mighty Joe Young.
Queen Kong.
Kong-
That was a Japanese movie, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was, yeah. And King Kong versus Godzilla, which I love that film.
So, yeah, I do think, though, that King Kong fell victim to the fact that people say it's not scary.
Yeah.
Right. And so there are, if we ever open it up to adjacent to horror movies, it might do better.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think that some people, people
scary or not, I mean, much like Frankenstein, much like Dracula, it's got its place.
Yes.
It has its place in history. You can call it scary or not. It doesn't matter.
Was Babe Ruth a great baseball player? Yes, he was. Right. All
Is
right.
Jose Canseco? Sure.
That's the 77.
Was Barry Bonds? Sure.
So
yes.
Yeah, he did. The 33 King Kong did it without cheating.
Yes, there was no roids.
Right. So I think that was a nice extra long episode for you.
Yes,
but I think
it was.
It's a huge thank you from us to you guys. We're kicking off our top 100.
Keep listening because we're gonna slowly but surely dribble out over the next couple months.
Yeah. We're going to do 10.
The rest.
We're going to be doing 10 episodes at a time until we get to our number 1, which will probably land in mid-October.
Hint, hint. Right,
Hey.
right in time for
Halloween. So there you go. With that, stay tuned for numbers 90 to 81.